I don't want to be his queen. I want to go home.
So do I. I want us both to go home, but they took it from us. So tell me, sweet sister, how do we go home?
I don't know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm jumping back into the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. I've been analyzing them in order. Last time around it was Catelyn 1 from Game of Thrones. There are links to the previous chapters in this description section, and I've also created a playlist too. This week we're looking at Daenerys 1. It's our first glimpse of Dany and her abhorrent brother Viserys. As the chapter opens, she's preparing to meet Khal Drogo. Viserys is basically selling off his sister in exchange for the help of the Dothraki in taking the throne back from Robert Baratheon. Viserys not only doesn't show his sister any consideration, but he's downright cruel to her as well, both verbally and physically. He often threatens her by saying, "You don't want to wake the dragon." We learn too that he never forgave Dany, because their mother died while giving birth to her. Rhaela Targaryen is one of many women in the A Song of Ice and Fire world who doesn't survive through childbirth. And in some of these instances, the impact of that death also had great ramifications for the realm as well. Daenerys never had a childhood. Her life has been spent running from place to place. George writes, "She had never seen this land her brother had said was theirs, this realm beyond the narrow sea, these places he talked of, Casterly Rock and the Eyrie, Highgarden and the Vale of Arryn, Dorne and the Isle of Faces. They were just words to her. Viserys had been a boy of 8 when they fled King's Landing to escape the advancing armies of the usurper, but Daenerys had been only a quickening in their mother's womb. Yet sometimes Dany would picture the way it had been. So often had her brother told her the stories." One side note here. You have to wonder how much of what Viserys told her was accurate, since he was only 8 at the time. So you need to question some of his own recollections. Viserys also demonstrates that he's not very perceptive of people and his surroundings. Anyway, back to this excerpt, where George weaves in more background information. The midnight flight to Dragonstone, moonlight shimmering on the ship's black sails, her brother Rhaegar battling the usurper in the bloody waters of the Trident and dying for the woman he loved, the sack of King's Landing by the ones Viserys called the usurper's dogs, the Lords Lannister and Stark, Princess Elia of Dorne pleading for mercy as Rhaegar's heir was ripped from her breast and murdered before her eyes, the polished skulls of the last dragon staring down sightlessly from the walls of the throne room, while the Kingslayer opened Father's throat with a golden sword. Like with the prologue and the first 2 chapters, Martin injects a lot of important world-building information. One thing, though, that really stood out to me was that while mentioning all of those places, Dorne, Casterly Rock, Highgarden, and so on, he also tossed in the Isle of Faces. I believe there's a larger significance there, and that it'll play a role in the latter books, if we ever get them. But to put it in so early in the story, when filling out the tapestry of Westeros, isn't just happenstance. Dany has no memories of Westeros or Dragonstone. The one constant for her is continually traveling. Martin writes, "At first the Magisters and Archon and merchant princes were pleased to welcome the last Targaryens to their homes and tables, but as the years passed and the usurper continued to sit upon the Iron Throne, doors closed and their lives grew meaner. Years past they had been forced to sell their last few treasures, and now, even though the coin they had gotten from Mother's crown had gone, in the alleys and the wine sinks of Pentos, they called her brother the Beggar King. Dany did not want to know what they called her." So while Viserys is selling off Dany, and he certainly has no reservations about doing it, they still have arrived at a point of desperation. It's the end of the line, and something has to change the dynamic. And it's not simply for Viserys to attempt to regain the throne, but even simple survival at this stage. Magister Illyrio, who has taken them under his wing while they've been living in Pentos, also knows how to easily manipulate Viserys. I love this excerpt. "They are your people, and they love you well," Magister Illyrio said amiably. In holdfasts all across the realm, men lift secret toasts to your health, while women sew dragon banners and hide them against the day of your return from across the water. He gave a massive shrug. Or so my agents tell me. Dany had no agents, no way of knowing what anyone was doing or thinking across the narrow sea, but she mistrusted Illyrio's sweet words as she mistrusted everything about Illyrio. Her brother was nodding eagerly, however. Viserys accepts his claims without question. He believes there are many houses in Westeros that will be on his side. Dany, though, is more discerning. Viserys then bombastically claims that he'll kill the usurper himself, and Dany detects what she believes is a trace of a smile on Illyrio's face as her brother says it. Incidentally, there are a number of similarities between Viserys and Joffrey. Both are cruel, selfish, and have next to no awareness of themselves. They both also make boasts of great feats they're incapable of, and most around them can see through the veneer. As this chapter draws to a close, Dany and Viserys go to Drogo's manse. There she sees Jorah for the first time, but they don't speak to one another. Her initial reaction to Khal Drogo is fear. She's always been scared of her brother, but even that is overridden by her desire to get out of this arranged marriage. She pleads with Viserys for them to just go home, and of course, that doesn't get her anywhere.
We go home with an army. With Khal Drogo's army. I would let his whole tribe fuck you. All 40,000 men and their horses too, if that's what it took.
It's at this point where the chapter ends. One other side note on it is that when she was younger, Dany thought that she would eventually marry Viserys, keeping with the custom that the Targaryens had of marrying within their family. Next up in this series will be Eddard 1, our first POV chapter of Ned. Links down in the description section for the previous chapters I've done. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. And if you're interested in more on A Song of Ice and Fire and House of the Dragon, listen to Caraxes and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon.